Hello and welcome to the Infinity Saga and Beyond, an MCU fan podcast. My name is Jordan, and with me today discussing the D23 Marvel Studios news is none other than the co-star of the biggest movie in the world right now. Oh, actually, no, it says not Wolverine. It's Logan, but he is not Wolverine. How are you today, Logan?
I am fantastic, Jordan. It's been a while. It's been a while since I've been on this one. So I'm excited to be back. I'm excited to discuss all things D23 and the announcements that have happened because my goodness, was there so much.
Yeah, so we're going to start with Toy Story 5. I'm just kidding. We have, maybe not as much as people had thought were going to happen when it comes to the Marvel side. Definitely not as much as people were hoping for the Star Wars side. But I think that's kind of expected when you have something like D23, which focuses on so many of the Disney brands. It's a little harder, I think, to fit all of them in. But yeah, so before we, I guess, get started on talking the news and stuff, Logan, you started reading some comics, isn't that correct?
Yeah, so Jordan was like, you know what? There's a special offer going on that's Deadpool Wolverine over on Marvel Unlimited, and I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to download the app because I wanted to get started reading anyway, because I enjoy comic books. So I was like, you know what? I think now is a good time, and it's a really good deal. I think it's like $4 right now. We're not sponsored by any means, but
$3.
$3
For the next 9 days, people can get, again, non-sponsored, not an ad, can get it $3 a month for the first 3 months.
Yeah, so I have jumped in, Jordan. I'm through issue 5 of the X-Men, the uncanning X-Men. Yeah,
But
uncanny
no, I think you're reading just
X-Men.
normal X-Men, aren't you?
No, it's I think it's hold
Does
on.
it say uncanny on it?
Yeah, it says uncanning on it.
Okay.
So I'm on issue number 5. Yeah, uncanny X-Men. Yep. So
There you go.
I'm up to a point where they're back and they were facing Magneto. So
Magneto, yeah.
Magneto, sorry. Yeah,
You got a lot to learn.
I do. I need somebody to like. There's a lot of names. I'm like, oh no, I don't know
Yeah, you
how
have
to
to
pronounce
say
that.
them out loud
Yeah,
sometimes.
I'll
Yeah,
have to
you read a
Google it.
comic name sometimes, and you're like,
Yeah.
don't know how to say this. Yeah, no. So we have, we'll have some comic talk coming up here, with kind of going through Logan's first time reading some of these comics. I think that could be a fun thing as we build up to some of these big movies coming up soon, and some shows and stuff. Kind of bringing back the old get to know series I did before with Moon Knight and Kang and stuff like that. All right, but let's get into D23. So when we're talking the live action stuff this time, they showed the same trailer that they showed from Comic-Con for Brave New World, Captain America: Brave New World, and they also showed the same trailer of pre-shot footage for Fantastic Four from Comic-Con. And I believe all that stuff from Fantastic Four is not actually going to be in the movie. It was stuff shot the week before Comic-Con that they threw together to kind of just have something to show and kind of like test stuff out. We'll see if any of that makes it into the movie. But we're not really going to talk about that stuff because we had talked about that stuff over on our Comic-Con episode where we were live for Comic-Con with Ron and Chris. So today we're going to mostly focus on the stuff that they showed for the Disney Plus shows, which they focused on Agatha because that's coming out next month. They talked a bit about Daredevil, which is coming out in March, and they talked a bit about Ironheart. Some of those trailers have leaked. We are not going to share the trailer. I might talk about stuff that happened in the trailer because there are descriptions out there that people have shared, but we are not sharing any footage on our channel. Just not worth getting into any of that stuff. Okay. So, and then the animation stuff happened earlier today. So we will talk about that as well. But they mainly focused on those 3 shows of Daredevil, Born Again, Agatha, and Ironheart. And actually, I think Ironheart is a perfect example for one of those get-to-know comic series, because I read her a few years ago and really loved one of the runs that I read. And I think that's a great introductory part for people who are not too familiar with her. Okay, so I guess let's talk about let's start with Daredevil, because this is one of my more anticipated shows. They confirmed a season 2 that is going to be starting to film early next year through July of next year. And the show itself is going to premiere in March of 2025. Logan, did you ever get a chance to watch the Netflix show that's now on Disney Plus? So that's even more confusing. Of Daredevil.
No, and it will be on my, I guess on my list to watch. Just because I know of Daredevil. I know kind of his background, but because I looked him up because I knew he was going to be. What was it in Hawkeye that he was in? I can't remember. What does he show up? Spider-Man.
Kingpin was in Hawkeye, yes, and he was in
Spider-Man. That's right. I couldn't remember. I get those two mixed up. But yeah, no, I know enough about him where I'm like, okay, I understand. Kind of. But then I was reading a bunch up on before we jumped on here, because I was like, I don't know too much about Daredevil, but I have heard the Daredevil show on Disney Plus, the one that made the shift over, was really good. So a lot of people like him.
Yeah. If you watch the show, you'll find out why. So this is one of those, like, a character that I grew up on. Daredevil. I have some comics that he featured in Spider-Man when I was growing up, and he made appearances in the Spider-Man animated series when I was growing up. And then the Ben Affleck movie came out with 2003 that had Jennifer Garner Elektra in it, who of course showed up in Deadpool and Wolverine. Spoilers for that, I guess. And though Ryan Reynolds and all of them are posting all the behind the scenes stuff online, so I'm sure you didn't get spoiled from me about Jennifer Garner appearing. But I saw that in theaters, and as a kid, I was like, "Oh, this is awesome." I have not revisited that movie. I cannot tell you if it holds up. Probably not. It made Ben Affleck not want to do any superhero stuff anymore until he got convinced to do Batman for Batman vs. Superman. And then that really convinced him to never do any more superhero stuff. Yeah, but then the TV show came out. The show came out in 2015. I was actually watching it on program, my second college program. It released during that time when I was working for Disney. And, I think I watched, I think I binged it, that week that it came out or whatever in the dorms. So it was really great show. I still have not seen season 3. Okay. I've watched season 1 and 2. I've rewatched seasons 1 and 2. I need to start season 3, and I'm going to do that before the show came out. I kind of kept putting it off when the show kept getting delayed, because I was like, I don't want to have to then rewatch them all again before the show. But yeah, so that is something that I'll be getting done before March, and maybe we'll do some Daredevil comic talk on the podcast before that starts in March as well. Mark Waid, one of my favorite comic book writers, has a very prestigious run on Daredevil that I think could be interesting to dive into. Yeah, so look, this looked really great. Also, Kamala Khan's father appears in this from Miss Marvel. So there's some connectivity here. And then also, Logan, I don't know if you know all the background in this behind the scenes stuff, but this show was filming and had a different creative crew until Feige and them were watching footage and were like, we need to pivot quick because this is not what we want. And they brought back a writer from the original 3 seasons. They pivoted back to bringing some of the original cast from that series. Originally, this was not going to have any ties to the Netflix show, But when people that's what people have been asking for, because it's a very well received show for 3 seasons on what was, a very the most popular of the Netflix Marvel shows. And it's like, why bring back Kingpin and Charlie Cox as Daredevil if you're not going to actually have them continue the stories from where they left off? And now it seems like that's what they are doing. We covered it on the podcast here. You can probably find the episode where I talked about this, but there was a whole article about it, and it even said like that the original scripts for this had him not even suiting up as Daredevil until like episode 4. That's not what we want. That's not what we want. So it seems like it's in good a place now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I wondered that too, because I do feel like, and you and I have talked about this on other platforms and stuff, but because it's been a while since I've been on here, and I think the last time I was on here is Winter Soldier, or not Winter Soldier, Falcon the Winter Soldier.
No, Moon Knight.
Oh, that's right. We did do Moon Knight. Okay.
You did a couple episodes of Moon Knight. I split it with you and
that's
Jack.
right. Yeah. Which, I mean, again, I felt like really had good. I love those two a lot. I loved Hawkeye, and then it started to get into some of the movies that some people weren't as big a fan of. But I did wonder that, Jordan. I wondered, with all of these acquisitions and different characters coming over from different platforms and different services, what that's got to be so hard for Feige, because he's tried it now with Deadpool and Wolverine. He's got they've got a lot of work to do, the writers. But I did wonder, how does that, because we have so much background when they come over already. It's kind of weird when they've been introduced in the MCU, and it's kind of like, what do we do with them? How do we start them out?
Well, the interesting thing about these shows in particular is that these were created by Marvel Television in a deal with Netflix, and they were supposed to be canon to the MCU originally. In Daredevil season 1, there are references to the Battle of New York and all that kind of stuff that happens in the first Avengers. But because these shows were getting made at a totally different time, meaning like, sometimes they're filming and they're turning around the show faster than the movies were, that they weren't able to kind of, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in particular, there were sometimes where Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. were really like hand in hand with Marvel Studios. But once Feige got more control in like 2015, because of the whole Ike Perlmutter stuff that's talked about in Bob Iger's book, and it's been well documented online about how Ike Perlmutter wanted to not do a lot of this stuff, wanted to be more cheap, and Bob Iger had to pretty much make Kevin the head of Marvel Studios and move it completely from Marvel as a whole. And that was to circumvent Ike Perlmutter and his say. That then also led to Ike Perlmutter teaming up with the people last year that were trying to oust Bob Iger from the CEO position and the board. So that's kind of still had ramifications all the way to now. But these shows were, coming out at a time where they weren't really as deep as connected as what the original goal had been. And that was because then Marvel Television got removed from Marvel Studios and the whole head of Marvel and everything, that then they were doing their own thing for a bit. And they would try to play it off as we're part of the MCU, but the same way Sony kind of does now with like trying to do whatever they're doing with their stuff. But where they try to play it off as like, oh, this is connected. And then it just never was. It was one of those things where it's a one-way connection, where the show would make references to the movies, but the movies would never make references to the show. Right. And that's kind of how it would go. Now, once, like, now they're just going to fold it in. And I think you're just going to be able to look back and say seasons 1 through 3 are canon. We're set. You can watch those 3, take a break, and then come back and watch Daredevil Born Again and kind of be, off to the races with that. So I also think maybe if you're out there listening and you haven't watched Daredevil, you can probably just watch Daredevil Born Again. I'm sure they'll introduce stuff in a particular way, so that way people are good. But this is bringing back Punisher. This is bringing back Karen and Foggy, who are very big deals of Daredevil's supporting cast. So Really looking forward to seeing how this show turns out, because it was a little worrying with how they were going, and now here they come. They've course corrected, and I think that they're going to be rewarded for that. I really do think that. But we can kind of move on from that. I mean, like I said, the footage shows, Daredevil talking to Kingpin, and there's great conversations in the show like that. And then you see him with Punisher, and then, it's leaked footage. You can't hear everything 100%, so you don't know exactly what they're saying. It's just that type of footage. But from what I saw of it when I watched it, it looks great, and I'm really excited to dive into it when it comes out in March.
Eldon Henson is in it.
Yes,
from Mighty Ducks. That's
yeah,
insane.
he's Foggy. Yeah, he's his business partner.
I love Eldon. I know him from Mighty Ducks, but I'm excited about. I love Kingpin. I think he's always been one of my favorites as far as villains are concerned. So I'm really excited. I think because Kingpin also, brute strength, but also he's got away with just the way that he talks and the way that he kind of, I don't know, he's a big bully. Like it feels like he knows things, he oversees things, he knows all of it. The crime, I mean, it feels like the crime lords and people kind of like what the Joker was in a way, kind of where it's like he sees all, knows all. I don't know. I've always felt like Kingpin, so I'm excited to get more of him because I think he's a great Marvel villain.
Yeah, so one of those that started out as a Spider-Man villain and then kind of got co-opted into being Daredevil's big nemesis, which is a fun little wrinkle there. Okay, so Ironheart. I'm not going to talk too much about this. This thing has been filmed for years. They're sitting on this because of the whole let's push everything back and get ourselves set so we're not releasing a million projects at once. And that'll be coming out, I believe, sometime next year as well. And already been filmed. Riri was in Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I really thought the Ironheart suit in that movie was ugly as sin. They do change it in this, but it's still not like her comic looking one. So I really wonder how she's going to get another suit as well. But yeah, there was a leaked trailer for this as well. And we got confirmation. So Jim Rash, who played the Dean in Community, was also in Civil War as somebody at MIT that Tony Stark was talking to. And he's back in this trailer. And Riri goes to MIT. So it seems like he's playing the same role as what he was in Civil War. So a little cool connective tissue there. But ultimately, not much to go on. I don't think we have an updated timeline on when this comes out. And I don't think we have anything other than like leaked footage that I know you were carefully trying to scroll around yesterday. While you were live.
Right.
Logan was live on his Disney vlog.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was tough because I was like, and I've seen it because it scrolled past, but anytime we get Riri in, I think a show, or I think I don't know, I just like everybody from Wakanda. I've always enjoyed the characters from Black Panther, and I think going forward, the more that they implement different characters, it'll be interesting. But yeah, no, I'm interested to kind of see what that all entails. But yeah, Shuri from Black Panther is
because she's in the trailer.
What I saw. It was like, oops, my bad. So be careful out there.
Yeah. Okay, and then the big one was Agatha All Along. We got a new trailer. I had actually not watched the first trailer that came out. It came out I think the trailer came out the week we had our son. So then it was really busy and I was not really watching trailers. I think we were in the hospital still, and it's one of those things where I'm like, I don't have my headphones right now connected. Then I'd have to bring them out, and little too much work. And then after a certain point, I was like, well, we're getting closer to release date. I might go without seeing a trailer and just be surprised. But I did watch yesterday's while you were streaming it. So, Logan, give me your Agatha All Along thoughts.
I think this is my most anticipated, like out of all the announcements yesterday and like kind of what we got as far as like trailers and stuff, like looking at this trailer, I'm like, I'm sold. I think it's a great release date. I know coming up in September, it'll go into the Halloween season, and they kind of pitch it that way. But I mean, just the witches, Jordan. I guess we can kind of like talk about it, but I had no idea that they're going to bring like the Wicked Witch of the West and I think it was Glenda the Good Witch were seen.
Yeah, are they
briefly.
really going to be in it? Because I don't know if they
I don't know.
the
It was strange because it was
rights for
definitely
that.
them, right? Like it was definitely, or at least making fun of, because it was definitely a green witch, and it was definitely Glenda the Good Witch sitting at the table. Like it definitely felt Wizard of Oz. Like I haven't done my
Yeah, somebody was all green, right? It was
yeah.
I don't know if it's just going to be like they're referencing it or
It was wild.
yeah, it's a little confusing for me. No, WandaVision was a what was a big one. That's kind of what kicked off the whole podcast. Our podcast here was originally called Marvel Plus, and it was supposed to cover, you know, Disney Plus recaps and any of the movies and all that kind of stuff. And then, you know, I sat on that name for too long, and somebody else created the name, created a podcast with that name. I don't even know if they're an active podcast anymore, but kind of is what it is at this point. So, you know, I pivoted the name, but one of the first things I did, I think episode 3 or 4 of the podcast started with WandaVision coverage. And that was kind of like my goal was like get everything set up for WandaVision to kick off the podcast. I did a few episodes that talked about like news and stuff before that happened. I think like my first episode talks about Jamie Foxx coming back as Electro in No Way Home. And then the next one may have been like Doctor Strange being added to No Way Home. Like stuff like that was some of my first episodes of the podcast. So WandaVision is at that very early stage of the podcast. It was a lot of fun covering the show. Agatha was a standout in that. I'm just not a big fan of the witch stuff usually. Like I'm not a big Hocus Pocus guy. I'm not a big Halloween guy. So I'm not really sure how I'm going to vibe with the show. Yeah, I guess I don't really like anything Halloween. I don't like Nightmare Before Christmas. I don't really deal with any of that stuff. So we'll see. I know my wife was a little apprehensive because it looked a little darker than she had thought. She was really excited for Agatha because I think she thought it was going to be a lot like WandaVision, but it does look to have a different tone and a different feel. And she's like, "Oh, is this going to be too scary that I can't watch?" You know, because she can't handle certain things. But I was like, no, I mean, it's probably going to be like on the level of Hocus Pocus. Like, I don't think it's going to be, it's not going to be TVMA, and it's not going to be scary enough, I don't think, to push away other people. But it is interesting. I don't know. What vibe did you get when you saw the trailer?
I don't, and I think there's been a lot of discussion. Like I knew that they said that Doctor Strange Multiverse was going to be dark, and I didn't think it was very scary. Like they said, oh, it's going to be like a horror film.
Yeah.
I didn't really think it had that element. I don't think so. I think this is going to be more whimsical. Can I share my screen to show you the standstill of the Wicked Witch?
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
I didn't know if I can do that, but yeah, let me.
Now I took over one of your episodes recently.
Yeah. So there you go. I paused it. That's definitely Wicked Witch. Like, well, I think Disney does own their rights, right? Because they're an AMC movie, right? I think AMC owned them.
No, so it's confusing because MGM had the rights to the original Wizard of Oz. At some point, the rights had gone to Disney. They did Oz the Great and Powerful. So I guess maybe if they still have those type of rights, they can.
Yeah.
It could also be that that's not actually who it is,
Right.
and it's like a reference, and like one of them changes into that, and it's considered parody or something, and they're able to get around it or something. I don't know. It's interesting.
there's definitely a moment, like, and it wasn't, I couldn't find it in that trailer, but there is definitely a moment. I'm not crazy, I don't think, that there's a, when she does that, whoever turns into what looks like the Wicked Witch of the West, sitting at the table is a witch with a pink dress on, looks just like the Glinda the Good Witch, and she has the crown on her head.
Yeah,
And I'm like,
yeah,
that's
they
so
got
weird.
Ariana
Like,
for it.
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we got Wicked. I mean, this is going to be a hell of a matchup. But yeah, no, Jordan, I personally, I love this because I love witches. I love Hocus Pocus. So I'm kind of the flip opposite of you, where
Yeah.
this is right down my alley. And I think, right, I think walking down that street and like the street and doing the trials and down that road, it's very Salem witch, very, yeah, I'm all for it. I love that kind of stuff. So I'm digging it. I really am. And I like Aubrey Plaza. I really do. I think she's really funny. I think she's got a very good dry sense of humor. So I'm excited to see what that's like.
Yeah, Aubrey Plaza. It just reminded me. My wife and I had this whole conversation. We're watching your live stream, and
Yeah.
it got to the Mufasa part, and I think you had mentioned Donald Glover
Yes.
coming back, and she said, "Donald Glover, isn't that the guy from Smallville?" And I was like what? Like playing who in Smallville? And then it clicked for me, and she meant John Glover, who's if you look up John Glover, an 80-year-old guy. So like he was in his 60s playing this role, white guy playing Lionel Luthor, Towson alum, by the way. And I was like, no, it's just
so he doesn't look like Donald Glover.
No,
Yeah.
no, not at all. I was like, you thought John Glover's voicing Simba? I was like really confused then when what she was talking about.
I love that.
Getting to the animated stuff real quick. X-Men 97 season 2, they really just showed a little teaser to the crowd. We're not seeing any of that. Magneto's in court. Grant Morrison costumes, which are from his run. They're going to be wearing those apparently in it. I don't know how often because I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the Grant Morrison costumes. So that'll be interesting. Polaris, Apocalypse, and Danger are going to appear in X-Men 97 season 2 as well. So that's happening. I highly recommend X-Men 97, Logan.
Yeah, no, it's on my list, especially after I've started to get through X-Men, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it so far. So,
a new 4-part event series called Eyes of Wakanda is going to expand the mythos of the country. It says, yeah, that's all it really said. Animation for that, they said, kind of looked like 3D CGI. I don't know. They didn't really show any actual footage of it, like that somebody could take a picture of, and I haven't seen any leaked stuff from it. But it seems to be some sort of Wakanda animated series that'll be coming soon. And then they showed, What If season 3 is confirmed to be the final season of What If. So that'll be done. They had Moon Knight's going to appear in it. Ironheart, Shang-Chi, White Vision are going to appear. They're having a Voltron anime style episode, which introduces an Avengers team led by Sam Wilson, consisting of Moon Knight, Photon, Red Guardian, and so a whole bunch of that stuff. And it is the final season of What If. Let's see. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which was rumored to be coming out later this year. None of these have updated dates, so we actually have no clue. But it does seem like some interesting things here, Logan, with Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. It depicts Peter's first day of freshman year, this footage. His arrival at school is immediately interrupted by Doctor Strange fighting a monster that looks a lot like Venom. One of Strange's portals leads to a radioactive spider from the Venom's universe, landing on Peter and biting him as he is meeting Nico Minro, a character from the Runaways comics and also the Runaways TV show. So that's how he's getting his powers in this universe of freshman year. or what was originally called Freshman Year, now is called Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. There was another scene showed 5 months after that, which shows Peter taking down street level thugs. He's got like a lot of different suits he's wearing in this, and then Norman Osborn is gonna be kind of playing the Tony Stark role in this universe. They even showed like a clip, I think a couple years ago, last time they showed something of this, is like showing, in Civil War when he sees Tony for the first time, talking with Aunt May, but it was Norman instead of Tony. So it sounds like that in that universe, he has a relationship with Norman like he did with Tony.
Yeah, I was just watching. I was watching Marvel. People, if you're watching the video, probably saw me jump because I was watching the. I was watching the Marvel because Spider-Man's Twitter and Marvel Entertainment's Twitter have been tweeting about it. And I started clapping, and it was really loud in my ear. It scared the crap. I was like, "What was that?" But Jordan, I didn't know that there was an alternate universe that Norman Osborn was going to be more of a Tony Stark mentor to Spider-Man, and that throws me for a loop, just because I guess like Norman Osborn was in the Spider-Man with Tobey, like that first one, it like he does give him a lot of advice, but also he's conflicted, so it's but I just find that fascinating because I was really excited about this because I'd been anticipating this one because I had heard obviously that freshman year and there was a lot of steam in behind this one and what it was going to be, so I was looking forward to seeing possibly what they were going to release for this.
And then we got Marvel Zombies, which is revealed to be 4 episodes long. It's based off a What If episode that had zombies, and also the comic series by Robert Kirkman, who did The Walking Dead. He created a Marvel Zombies comic, and it looks like they will have characters like Shang-Chi, Katie, and Jimmy Woo in the middle of the street fighting zombies. They get overrun until the Mandarin shows up and is fighting zombies with the 10 rings. I think they even said there's a moment where Shang-Chi gets bit and the Mandarin uses the rings to somehow sacrifices himself by transferring the rings to Shang-Chi, who is then healed, I guess, from the bite. And then it cuts to like 5 years later, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff like that. But seems to be 4 episodes. TVMA is what it's going to be rated. So a mature animated series from Marvel coming soon. Where's this on your radar? Are you hoping this gets added to Horror Nights?
Yeah, I was kind of hoping like that with Universal's connection to Disney.
Yeah, in the Marvel part of the park.
Yeah, no, I was just reading from Discussing Film too. Includes Shang-Chi, Katie, and Jimmy Woo fighting a Skrull biker gang in Mad Max style.
Yes.
So that'll be in animation. That'll be. I'm interested. I kind of wonder what that's like, just because I don't know. I think it's fascinating when they do animation. Just a lot of action. But I wonder, Jordan, how many kids stumble across this and because grown-ups see, oh, it's just a Marvel movie, and go, oh, that's not just TV show. That's a little bit different than what I expected it to be.
Yeah, I don't know. You kind of open that door when you have Deadpool on Disney Plus as well. True. And like Daredevil was rated TVMA on Netflix. So I don't know. I think we've kind of opened that door. There's no real closing it. Just make sure that you have your parental guides on if you are a parent, right? Like, I feel like
Disney Plus was or is getting ready to announce that this supposedly D23, or it has, and they didn't officially talk about it, but they actually added a kids playlist now. So now you can put things
it's
on
like
a loop.
Channel, right?
Yeah. It's like a channel that you can upload all the.
Like if you watch content. Like Pluto or something, how they have
Yep.
channels based around certain things. They're going to be doing that on there, which is a good idea.
Yeah.
That was most of the big news. all of those TV shows for the animated stuff are going to be, they said, for the next 18 months. And you know what? I know some people are upset that there wasn't a locked on release window for a lot of those. I say good, actually, because all these release windows keep changing, right? Like, just tell me when it's like a couple months out, and I will be happy. I don't think I need to know everything ahead. Like, I saw, like, Ron was, asking me, like, hey, do you think they'll, on D23 yesterday, do you think they'll show or reveal what these 2026 movies are for Marvel? And I said, I don't think they will. I think right now, Marvel and Disney in particular are focusing on the items that are coming in the next year to 18 months. They want to focus on what is in the immediate here and not focus on let's get you hyped for 2026. They're thinking let's get you hyped for the stuff that's coming out this year. Like, most of the stuff that they showed at that panel yesterday was for stuff that was right around the corner, especially on Marvel's plate, which is great. I don't think we need, we kind of lost the plot, I think, a little bit, Logan, when it comes to how far in advance we were knowing about certain things. And I think they learned their lesson in 2022 when Marvel goes up there and says, here is our plan. Kang Dynasty. We have Secret Wars. We have all this stuff. And originally those were supposed to release within 6 months of each other, Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. Then what happens? They had to push it back. They had to push it back for a whole bunch of reasons. You get to strikes. You get to still delays with COVID and pushing release windows back. And making sure that they have enough sound stages to film stuff on. That's one of the reasons the Batman Part 2, Warner Brothers picture, got pushed back, is because they didn't have enough stages in London for what they were filming. So then they had to push it back a whole year. And then you get to the whole Kang of it all, too. Then you get the curveball of Jonathan Majors getting in trouble and people just not connecting with Kang. And then you have, all right, now we got to pivot. And it looks so much worse when you have to keep pushing. We have a writer strike. We have an actor strike. We had underperformance with this character or with, an actor getting in trouble. And now we have to keep pushing everything back. And they're already pushing stuff back, too, because Chapek wanted to keep producing more stuff. And then Iger comes back in and says, actually, we're oversaturating the market right now. We have to pull back. And that's why stuff like Ironheart, that's been filmed for 2 years or whatever, is getting released next year. Like, we're just going to keep getting this stuff kind of push. But I don't need to be told what's coming out in 2026 because I don't know if it'll actually come out in 2026. We see the Blade right now, too. Blade is supposed to come out November next year, and they still haven't even started working on that with an acceptable script. So at this point, I'm kind of like, yeah, you know what? Don't tell me what it is until next July when you probably have stuff rolling and you feel a little bit better about it.
Yeah, I think that's where, because of, I think because of that phase where we went through, that first phase, I guess it was, that we went through, and they're starting to connect Iron Man and Thor and Black Widow and Hawkeye and Hulk. Like, you're telling those stories individually, Jordan. It didn't really seem like there was a lot of, obviously that's when social media really wasn't much of a huge influence yet. Like, it was starting to become a huge influence, and then now we've got into, there's such a huge, and that's what, it was interesting to hear Iger and them discuss this, and I think Filoni and them talked about it a little bit as well with Star Wars, is that they said that right now it's so difficult because it's really, entertainment and the way that people get access to things, and because there's so much access to other things, and that it's really hard to kind of put that stuff out there, because if one thing goes wrong or they change one thing, there's a recall of information where they can just go, no, you said that, like that you said this, that this was coming, that this was how it was going to go, that I was going to enjoy this, that I was going to get connected to Kang. Like, I feel like that's where I think Marvel was, and I think you see it a lot now with Disney. They're very hesitant to release that kind of stuff. until they know that it's actually going to happen, which is a tough lesson to learn. But I'm glad they're kind of learning this, because I do think that it's hard to disappoint when people don't know what they're disappointed about. So I think that's kind of the mode that Marvel's been in.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that, like, some of this stuff, like, not to get into Star Wars, but Mandalorian and Grogu did get some stuff shown and, like, stuff like that. And it's like, great. Awesome. But that's actually filming. Whatever is supposed to be coming out in 2026 for Marvel, that it has not started filming yet. So at this point, I'm like, all right, don't announce something if you don't actually have it in front of cameras at this point, is kind of my thought. It's not worth it. It's just going to get pushed, or something's going to happen. They have those dates reserved. That's fine. They don't always need to reveal them at a Comic-Con or a D23, but I'm assuming those will be revealed at Comic-Con next year if they feel like they're starting to get progress on that. The world has changed post-COVID too. I know a lot of people were upset we didn't get some of those trailers, but for the diehards who go and pay the money, I think they do probably deserve to get some exclusivity. But two, the casuals, if you tell them this movie comes out in 2026 or 2025, like Thunderbolts, which is in May of 2025, a few years ago, we used to get trailers a year out that'd be like, hey, this movie is coming next year. We don't really get that anymore. A lot of the movies have shifted to, you get a trailer 6 months out, or you get a teaser like 6 months out, and then you're going to get a real trailer within 3 months. I mean, I was going back and re-uploading onto YouTube my No Way Home trailer reactions. Our first teaser for No Way Home was in August of 2021, and the movie came out in December. And then the full trailer came out in November, which is a month to go. Like, at this point, the way that COVID has kind of reset the box office is making people's attention span smaller, where it's like, we're going to do the media blitz once we're like 3 months out. We'll start it with the 6 months, right? But then 3 months out, you'll get another trailer, and then you'll get another trailer, and then we'll start putting TV spots a month out from the movie, and we'll overload you with it so you know it's out. And you know what? That's worked. Deadpool and Wolverine had their first trailer at the Super Bowl, and that came out 6 months later and was a huge hit. So I don't think we need to show some of that footage for movies that are so far away. All right, but that'll wrap us up here for Marvel. I mentioned Comic Talk, X-Men. Ron and I are doing what we are calling X-Men examinations once a month, and it's talking the new X-Men comics as they release. We talked X-Men 1, Uncanny X-Men #1, and Phoenix #1 that just released in July and August, as they've started this post-Krakoa era of X-Men. And those are talks that we've had here. Here's the covers of those, and that episode should be up probably before this one, so make sure you check that out and listen to our discussions of the X-Men comics as they've relaunched them again now. So make sure you check that out. That'll be happening every month, where we talk about the issues as they go down, kind of like our Ultimate Spider-Man talks that we've been having on the podcast. Logan, where can people find some of your podcasting and works like that?
Yeah, so I have a Green Lantern. No, I'm kidding. We Met Behind the Castle, which is where we talk all things Disney parks, Disney entertainment, and more. So that would probably be the best location to find any stuff that I discuss, anything Marvel. We do talk about different editions. We'll be talking about the new Avengers e-ticket attraction that's coming to Disneyland, Avengers Campus. We'll cover anything that they announced today as far as Avengers. I'm sure we will get some kind of Avengers news whether it be on the cruise ships and that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's where you can find me. We Met Behind the Castle, TikTok, YouTube. That's where I'm most active. We have a podcast now. If you want to listen to that, it's We Met Behind the Castle. So covering all things Disney, but also Universal. So we do have that mix as well. So
yeah. All right. And I've been on there a couple times. So you can check me out over there. Logan and I also have our soccer podcast, Stateside Soccer Show. If you happen to like American soccer overlapping with your comics, check us out over there at Stateside Show on all of our social media. And that's that. Have a great rest of your week. We will catch you next time here discussing more Marvel stuff in the future.